From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, it's another episode of 10K Takes Television. As usual, plenty for us to get into. And I think we'll start with Sasquatch, the NFL, which this week is bigfooting everyone with the draft.
Yeah, you've got the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, baseball, MLS. But the NFL steps in. They're not even on the field. They won't be on the field for another 5 months, but here we go.
Crown jewel event on the NFL calendar. It'll get tremendous ratings. We know that. You and I might not be tuning in, but a lot of other folks will. And then you're going to get this instant analysis. These grades will come out, and people are going to tell you, hey, the Minnesota Vikings got a B, or the Cleveland Browns got a C, or the San Francisco 49ers got an A. Well, nobody really knows.
Right.
It's a lot of speculation, a lot of huffing and puffing. But what we do know, if you want to really grade a draft, you got to go back 4 or 5 years. So we're looking right now in front of you at the 2019 NFL draft. We've got the top 8 picks overall, and then the Vikings selections.
Let me ask you this. Prior to 2019, and maybe even still today, do you have any idea who Cam Smith is or was?
It rings a bell. I want to say Cam Bynum, but no, it was Cam Smith, the 5th overall pick by the Vikings.
Exactly.
5th round.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's how I view the NFL draft. Now, back in the day, I really believed that the NBA draft was interesting to watch because you saw a vast majority of those players in the NCAA tournament. I mean, these are people that you are familiar with. You can look. I could look at that list of the top 10 guys and tell you, yeah, this guy is better than this guy, and this guy should go here and there. But obviously, because it's become so European drenched now, the NBA draft, and they're taking guys, basically just out of high school, more or less, that has changed. The NFL draft, other than a few quarterbacks and a handful of running backs, and maybe a few wide receivers, I have no idea. And so if your team is picking, what are the Vikings picking this year? 18th? Is that right? So if you have the 18th pick of the draft, do you honestly think you know what type of player is going to be available and some, offensive lineman that's playing for Penn State? Really? You really know that? You've got to be some kind of a guru or a nut that has nothing else to do with your life if you know that stuff.
They're called draft geeks.
Oh, my
And they hunker down in their basement, and they get online, and they study these boards and these mock drafts.
Yeah, they're in their mother's basement, by the way.
Exactly. That's a good point. and they have to be home by 10 p.m. But, yeah, I just think it's really absurd that people get this worked up about something that is very unscientific. It's pure speculation. I mean, you look at some of the greatest Vikings we've ever seen. Oh. John Randall was undrafted. Texas A&I Kingsville.
Adam Thielen.
Yep. Undrafted, now with Carolina, but a great career here. And there are others. So I don't, just take it all with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
That's the way I look at it. Now, let's look at these top picks back in 2019. Number 1 overall, Kyler Murray went to Arizona. So a few years later, we have, a pretty good sample size on Kyler. Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Probably a thumbs up, but I'm not sure that he would be the number 1 overall pick if you were to redraft today. I think Nick Bosa went number 2 to the 49ers. I think I might be more inclined to take Nick Bosa number 1 overall, and Kyler Murray would drop down a few. I mean, he's kind of in the same category as Daniel Jones. I mean, they've each had good years and each had years where they've been not so good. And Daniel Jones, obviously, asked the Vikings, right? He beat them in the playoffs, lost to them in the regular season.
And he was taken in round 1, number 6 overall in that 2019 draft.
Right.
And the Giants got barbecued. People said, Daniel who? He was out of Duke.
Right.
But I would say he's pretty much right now on even par with Kyler Murray.
I think that's fair, in so much as he led them to the playoffs and a playoff win, right? Kyler Murray, super talented. I don't think there's any question about that, but he's a pain in the you-know-what. I mean, he has not been an easy teammate. He has not gotten along with the organization. He took them off their Twitter. Right. I mean, he's done all kinds of things.
We can always fall back on MLB. I mean, the Oakland A's wanted him badly. So,
right.
who
Well,
knows?
there's
Maybe
that.
he will end up playing baseball.
Deion Sanders did it, man.
Yeah, Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Third overall pick, Quinnen Williams, New York Jets, defensive tackle out of Alabama. I would say the Jets hit a home run on that one. He made the Pro Bowl last season, and he's a space eater.
Yeah. Well, and he'll be happy to be teammates with Aaron Rodgers this year because they actually have somebody that knows where to throw the football.
He won't be allowed to lay a finger on Aaron Rodgers in practice.
No, that won't happen at all. Okay, Colin Farrell.
Yeah, he was taken by the Raiders, now with San Francisco.
Number 4 overall.
Yeah, a working project. So there's an example of a guy who went very high, and if you redrafted today, I'm not sure where he goes or even what round he goes in.
Yeah, he may not even go in the first round. And then number 5 overall was Devin White, who went to Tampa Bay. Obviously, he's been very good for Tampa.
He's a solid linebacker. He's athletic. He makes plays. I think the Buccaneers hit a home run with that one.
And obviously, he has a Super Bowl ring to show.
He does.
Thanks to some guy named Brady. Okay, now the Vikings 2019 draft. The first 3 names jump right off the paper at you, and you can make judgments on them. Garrett Bradbury at center. I thought he had a very good year this past year, but he was a work in progress for the first few years.
It was a struggle out of the gate for Garrett Bradbury. And there was a lot of pressure. I remember being at that draft in Eagan on Mike Zimmer, on Rick Spielman, to draft an offensive lineman.
Right.
I'm not sure Zim was happy that they took Bradbury. He always wanted to go defense. But Bradbury, as you say, he's made some progress. Maybe it's the loving style of Kevin O'Connell that has brought out the beast in Bradbury on the line. We'll see. He's got to keep getting better.
Well, and he's got to stay healthy, too. Injuries were part of his problem over the last couple of years. All right, speaking of injuries, this is a guy that was a Viking up until, well, this past winter, Irv Smith Jr., tight end. He looked like a home run back then, and it looked pretty good for the first year or two. But man, injuries have just derailed his career.
He was their second-round pick out of Alabama, and he was a guy who could go down the seam. Not a huge tight end, not a guy that you would think of, dominating in the blocking game,
right?
But definitely a good receiver. And you're right, just can't stay on the field. Durability, his problem. If he can stay on the field, I think he's going to do some good things for somebody.
Yeah. All right. So this is the 2019 draft, the Minnesota Vikings' first 6 picks. Alexander Mattison went 3rd for the Minnesota Vikings. I think of all their picks that year, this is the guy that has made the most sense and has been their number 1 asset out of that draft.
I don't disagree. And they re-signed him.
Yeah.
I mean, and Dalvin Cook is still on the team, at least as we speak. So they value Madison. He's a great change-up back for what Dalvin brings, and I think they can count on him. That's the beauty of Alexander Mattison. He will play hard, play smart, and they like him.
Who is Drew Samia?
I don't know, but he was their 4th-round pick. So...
Did he ever make it? Is he on an NFL roster anywhere?
I doubt it.
He might be playing in the XFL or the USFL.
That's right. He's got options.
You follow those leagues closely. We already talked about Cam Smith. I have no idea who or where he is these days. And then what's the last one here? Armand Watts.
Yep. Again, another example of
TJ Watt's brother, maybe? No.
Yeah. If it was, they got the wrong Watt brother.
Yeah, they did.
JJ, TJ. I don't think he's related.
Maybe Slick Watt's grandson.
So yeah. Wow, with the headband?
Yeah, you remember him?
Seattle,
yeah.
So quickly, give out a grade on the 2019 Vikings draft. I'm going to give them, and I'm going to be generous here, a C.
I was going C+, so maybe I'm even more generous. I just think that you've still got 2 guys, a starter in Garrett Bradbury and Alexander Mattison, who is a significant contributor. I'll give him a C+ because you got 2 out of the 6. But, and Irv Smith, I think, minus the injuries, would have been pretty good for Minnesota. But that never really panned out.
That's why they wound up getting T.J. Hawkinson, who, oh, by the way, in that same draft, went number 8 in round 1 to Detroit.
Yeah, number 8 overall.
Yeah.
Now he's a Viking.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to talk some Minnesota Timberwolves.
This is 10K Takes, your NFL draft ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Well, we're talking some NBA hoops now. Your Minnesota Timberwolves, season over. I guess I'm not surprised. They lost to Denver. And, 1 versus 8 seed, the expectations aren't great, but I think the expectations were great at the beginning of the year for sure. You go out and get Rudy Gobert, you trade away that boatload of draft picks, and now what do? Do you make another move here in the offseason? Do you stand pat with the guys you have? What's going to happen?
I don't really know what they can do. They don't have a lot of draft capital to peddle. That's all gone to Utah on the Rudy G trade. So they're going to have to get creative. As I look at this season, you're right. I think going in, the expectation was, at a minimum, to get out of round one.
Of course.
If you go back a year ago, they lost to Memphis in 6 games. They are out this year, 1 and done in 5 games. This season, much more dysfunctional. With Rudy G and Kyle Anderson having the dust up, Rudy G throwing the haymaker, and Jalen McDaniels, the sucker punch against the concrete wall, and then trying to integrate Rudy G with this team, a very controversial deal that I believe myself is going to set this franchise back a long way. I hope it doesn't cripple this team, but I'm not optimistic. So what can they do? I'm not sure. They have a good point guard, Mike Conley. I think people like him, but he is 35.
Right.
He's probably not the long-term answer there. So find a point guard. Do you keep Cat? I still say yes. He's too good. Unless you can get a bunch of stuff back, the Rudy G trade in reverse.
Exactly.
But who's that dumb?
I don't know, but Karl Anthony Towns is a better player than Rudy Gobert. Certainly offensively he is. Rudy Gobert is a stiff on offense, man. He is a liability out there. Now defensively, he's very, very good, and he gets rebounds and blocks shots, and he does all those things. But I don't know. Look, if you think you can win without Karl Anthony Towns, and they have shown in stretches that they can. Sunday night, let's not forget, Cat fouled out of that game. It's the Sunday night win in Game 4 it was to survive, right? So he fouls out, and they go on to win the basketball game without Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not saying that you could do a whole season like that, but if you get a decent return for him, if you get some of that draft capital back that you gave away, I guess I'm not totally opposed to it. Look, Anthony Edwards is the guy right now.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. He's electric. He's just going to get better. He brings a lot of energy, and the fans love him. I think, though, the Timberwolves are probably going to use a spin on the way this season turned out.
I know where you're going with this.
Cat missed 50-plus games, and then Naz Reid gets hurt late, and then Jalen McDaniels, the unfortunate punch. And they're going to say, if we get all these current pieces on the floor next year, and Rudy G and Cat can continue to assimilate, they'll be better. And maybe they will. I won't disagree with that, but I'll still say this. They gave up way too much for Rudy G. I'm not even sure he's a top 20 player in the association. He's good, but he's not elite.
Well, if Naz Reid is healthy and you have Rudy G, I think that you could make that trade. I think that you could go out, you can trade Cat, and hopefully get back some of the draft picks that you stupidly gave away. Because as you just said, you said that the long-term answer at point guard is not going to be Mike Conley, right? He's 35 years old. All right, so you've got to go out and get one that you think might help you down the road. And the only way you're going to be able to do that unless you sign a free agent, and I'm not sure that they have the room, cap-wise, to go out and get a free agent at that level. You traded away, you traded away D'Lo, and I'm not totally opposed to the D'Lo trade. As you know, I was never a huge D'Lo fan, but he could score, and we've seen that with the Lakers too.
It seems to me like the T-Wolves' quest for a point guard long term is an eternal search. It reminds me of the Minnesota Vikings looking for a quarterback. And I know Kirk Cousins has been here for a while, and he's been pretty good. Not sure he's exactly what the fans want, but it's like the Twins trying to get pitching. So, and the Timberwolves keep making mistakes that compound one another. I mean, once upon a time they could have had Steph Curry. I mean, they took Chris Dunn over Jamal Murray, who's excelling with the Denver Nuggets. Imagine the Timberwolves with Jamal Murray. We saw him up close. He's pretty good.
How about Chris Dunn? Slide him into the Timberwolves
I think
lineup.
he's in the G League now.
Oh, Lord.
He'd be good on the Iowa Wolves.
Yeah, very good. No, I'm not advocating trading Carl Anthony Towns. You got me confused. But what I am saying is that don't be surprised if they do it, because I think that they might look at this and think, well, if we could get some of this draft capital back, but again, is Tim Connolly the right guy to be pulling?
Yeah, I don't necessarily trust Tim Connolly. I will say this: if Cat is dangled and he's on the market, there will be a lot of teams
there's going to be takers
that will take the phone call or the text or whatever they do now to contact each other in the NBA from the Timberwolves. So it's possible. Yeah, if you get that super stud point guard in return, or get yourself a pick that can allow you to choose somebody who's going to step in and get it done. But remember, draft choices are always a risk.
Yeah. Do I think that they're going to make a trade to trade away Karl Anthony Towns? No. I think that it's probably less than 80-20, something like that.
Here's what I'll say, and I've been critical of the Rudy G deal, as have others. I'm going to give it next year. And let's assume everyone's on the floor and you don't have injuries and guys punching concrete walls. Let's assume you keep the team intact. Then we'll find out if Rudy G and Cat can come together, be the Twin Towers, and then you let Ant do his thing and you have all the pieces around him. I'll give him another year. But right now, this season, below expectations, in my opinion.
This was a C-, D+ season, if you ask me. All right. We need to take a break. We're going to come back and talk some Minnesota Twins. They've actually been pitching the ball very well so far this year. That's coming up. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earrings. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
And we continue along here on 10,000 Takes. Your Minnesota Twins still pitching the ball pretty well overall. Sonny Gray's been great. He shut down the Yankees, his former team, this past week on Monday night. And they're getting contributions up and down that rotation. And I think that that's the key to them hanging in here long term. Can they keep these guys healthy, and can they continue to throw like they've been? Because look, the problem that they have last year stemmed back to the bullpen, right? Because Rocco had this, knee-jerk reaction to get guys out of there so early in the game, third time through the order, all that bull that they use on those, when they're sabermetrics or whatever they're doing out there with using the computer to figure out how to manage a baseball game. Laptop. They call them Laptop Rocco. Well, this year, the pitchers are doing a much better job, and Rocco's hanging with them, and I think it's made a huge difference, and hopefully it'll continue.
Well, and I think he's got guys with the mindset of, I want to at least get you into inning 6 or 7.
Right.
If I'm going well. If I'm struggling, that's fine. Bring the hook out. But we see it with Sonny Gray. He can get you into 6 or 7. We've seen it with Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan. Kenta Maeda, I think, there's been some struggles coming back from Tommy John. So, and if you're able to do that and it's sustainable, your bullpen won't wear down. And think about it. We're not even into the the hot weather yet. Once things heat up, that might be even better for Twins pitching. There's been a lot of cold nights when these guys have been out there on the mound. Sonny Gray on Monday night. Pablo Lopez on Saturday. I was at that game against Washington, 35 degrees, and he struggled. He lost that game. But so these are challenging conditions to play baseball in. But eventually, rumor has it, we'll get some warmer weather. We might get above 55, 60, who knows? Maybe another 70-degree day for July 4th.
Well, and the other problem that the Twins have with the weather being so questionable here early on, and typically it is in Minnesota this time of year. Occasionally we get, those 80-degree days, but is the fan base. I mean, they're not showing up. They didn't show up to watch the New York Yankees. I mean, we went down, Monday night's the first Yankee game, and man, they announced 16,000. 16,000 what? 16,000 empty seats along with the other.
Including ushers, people selling concessions.
No, there were not 16,000. There
law
were
enforcement.
Yeah.
They counted everybody, including the birds flying around inside the ballpark. Well, yeah, perfect storm, too, for the New York Yankees. So it's early April. It's a Monday, Tuesday night, Wednesday day. Kids are still in school, so a lot of them aren't going to go. Then you have cool weather, and it's not conducive to getting those huge crowds. And it's unfortunate because the Yankees don't come back unless they meet in the postseason. And the other thing I noticed, the New York Yankees usually bring this media scrum with them.
Right.
15 to 20 reporters will follow this team all over the nation and Canada, Toronto. They were way down in their numbers. So I don't know what it is. Have the Yankees lost their cachet? Are they no longer the evil empire? What's going on?
Well, I mean, they are injured somewhat. Giancarlo Stanton, not in the lineup against the Twins this week, and that's a huge loss. I mean, he's your 4-hole hitter, and Aaron Judge. This is your one time to see Aaron Judge. This is the problem I have with interleague play, and and I'm going to just go down this road again. I would much rather see the Yankees in extra time, maybe 2 games later on in the season here, whatever, however they could figure it out. But I'd rather see them than see just about anybody in the National League. Give me 4 or 5 National League games and be done, or series and be done with it, and give me more games in the American League.
Well, on the flip side, Kansas City comes in this weekend, and they won't generate any more buzz than the Washington.
Yeah, but they're in your division, though. I mean, that's
but
different.
I get tired of seeing the Royals and the Tigers and the White Sox and the Guardians.
Well, you look at baseball in general. I think that the attendance is down all over the place, to be honest with you.
Well,
and it has something to do with the weather.
Yeah, it is April, and it's not just Minneapolis where the temps.
How about Oakland or Cleveland?
Oh my goodness! And Oakland doesn't have a weather.
Or Tampa, and they're winning. They're off to a record start, and they can't get people in the door.
Tampa Bay is looking like the '84 Detroit Tigers, who got out of the gate 35-5. I mean, they got out of the starting blocks better than anybody in MLB history, and the Rays might challenge that. So, yeah, baseball's got some issues. They've tried to speed the game up. I think that's so far played to generally rave reviews. Most people are happy with the pitch clock and things like that.
But I don't think that brings in new people, though. That might keep the people you have there a little more satisfied. But they've got to figure out ways to bring new people into the game.
Well, they got to keep marketing people like Shohei. People like Mike Trout, people like Aaron Judge, people like, when he's on the field, Byron Buxton. Clayton Kershaw the other night got his 200th career win. There's nobody that's going to join the 300 club anytime soon. Clayton Kershaw is as close as you're going to get now. So when guys like that are playing or pitching, you need to go out and watch them.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, why don't we take a break? We have to do takes of the day yet, and I hear you got a doozy for us.
Yep, we are 10K Takes. Your Twins ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years.
I think they're perfect. Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10K Takes on television. We are going to wrap up yet another episode. We'll have takes of the day here in a couple of minutes. But before we go away, the Minnesota Vikings announced recently they'll have a celebration of life May 21st at US Bank Stadium for the legendary Bud Grant, which, of course, he deserves that. I say, though, they should have this outside.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
They've got the TCO Performance Center. They have the outdoor stadium where the Minnesota Aurora play, and they have scrimmages during training camp. You got TCF/Huntington Bank Stadium where the Gophers play, and Bud was a Gopher too. I just feel like Bud, the great outdoorsman, right? He loved to hunt and fish, and he was a coach who carved his image at the old Mets Stadium, especially when it was the frozen tundra. I feel like this thing should be outside.
Yeah, well, But the Vikings and Ziggy kind of own this thing, and they also own part of that stadium in downtown Minneapolis, so they're going to put it in there. I mean, obviously, they're trying to protect themselves weather-wise, but Bud had nothing to do with protecting himself weather-wise, man. He, as former players will tell you, it was all about getting used to the cold and being better than the other guy in the cold and that type of thing. I don't know. I tend to agree with you. I mean, have this thing outside where Bud made his hay, right? I mean, at Met Stadium, and as you said,
that's where he forged his image,
right? No question about it. But they're moving it inside like they have everything else. I wonder if they'll have any of those fake snowflakes coming down during the celebration.
Oh boy!
I mean, there's all. I don't know.
And the other thing is, U.S. Bank is a larger seating capacity. It's more cavernous. I don't know how many people will go to this.
But you're not going to get 70,000.
No, that's where I'm going here. So if you drop it into Huntington or even on the TCO Performance Center campus, it probably would play better.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. I think you're right. But they're worried about the weather, which in Minnesota, I guess you have to.
They're worried about the weather. Bud never was.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people need to know.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Takes of the day. We're going to find out if you're a cranky Yankee, angry American. Maybe you're a happy camper, demanding diva. What is it this week?
Well, funny you should mention Cranky Yankee, because that was the Yankees television broadcast crew earlier this week when they came to town and they got their first look at the Minnesota Twins' brand new M logo. Yeah, that beautiful M with a little star up above it. Supposedly the upside down W that was the Washington Senators prior to coming to Minnesota. I think it's a reach, but whatever. But their comment, Ryan Rocco and Jeff Nelson, the former New York Yankee sidewinder, their comment was, it looks like the Miami Marlins logo. And I got to agree. I've always said that from the day that they unraveled that thing out at Mall of America back this past winter. I looked at that and I said, what? Give me the TC logo. That's what should be number one all the time, that M logo. Why did they have to have an alternate logo? Did they have an alternate logo last year? I don't think so. What's the big deal? They're trying to sell more hats.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so riddle me this, Batman. Then why did they give away TC hats on opening day? Are they just trying to get rid of them all? Is that the idea?
That was just a tease before they unveil the M with the North Star on top of it.
It's goofy. Promotion. They're not the North Stars, by the way.
Well,
they're the Twins.
If you look at the Wild logo, there's a little star in that cougar or whatever that is in their logo.
Yeah, but they're hockey.
Well, I'm saying, though, it's like the teams in Texas. They all have a star in their logos. You ever notice that? Texas Rangers, Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Stars. Mavericks, I think, have a star. Somehow, some way. I don't know. Let's see what the mood meter says. Ooh, demanding diva.
Yeah.
Demanding
that they get rid of
cranky
that M.
Yankee. I kind of like the M with the star.
Of course you do.
So I'll take the one they give you. Okay, my take of the day, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, as most people in the free world know. He's going from the smallest NFL media market, Green Bay, to the largest, the New York Jets / New Jersey. They play in East Rutherford, just 8 miles from Midtown Manhattan. So that's a huge transition. But the other thing is, they're doing cartwheels across the NFC North in Chicago, Detroit, and here in Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers dominated in the division. That's why the Packers have been dominant in recent years. How about his record versus Detroit? 18-8. Record against Chicago, 24-5. You thought the McCaskies owned the Bears? No, Aaron Rodgers does, or did. And Minnesota, 17 wins, 11 losses, 1 tie. So the division now is in a state of flux. The best quarterback in the North might be Kirk Cousins, maybe Jared Goff. Justin Fields and
Jordan Love.
Could be good, but we don't know yet. They're works in progress. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Better hang on to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. All right. On that note, let's FedEx out those thank yous. One goes to David Weld, also to Rocky. For Wally, I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.